Constantly, I think as any trans person will tell you, there's always a low, there's always a threat assessment happening at any time in any public space. But Harper, as you see in the film, she loved to go to these sort of smaller towns and dive bars and places that she wasn't sure if she would be welcome anymore.
I love this country so much, I just don't know if it loves me back right now.
Harper, would you want to do a road trip as this new version of yourself and at the same time figure out what this all means to us?
You recognize this guy? This is a Hollywood movie star.
No.
You don't recognize
You don't reckon? Okay.
movie?
That's okay. Roll up the window.
And can you just tell me how you got involved making this documentary?
I've known Will and Harper both for years, actually, and so when Will had the idea to accompany Harper on her first cross-country road trip since her transition, they both thought it might make a good documentary, and they reached out to me and my producing partners, having liked a lot of the documentary films I've made in the past, but also I think having that safety and trust that we have a relationship for years prior to going into this project. And they asked if I thought it would be a good documentary. And of course said I yes. And we had some meetings, and then we, it was not a few months later, we were all in a car heading across America. So,
What did you learn about the trans experience when making this film?
I mean, so much. I think that, one of the clear things that hit me was when Harper at one point in the film said, I don't have to hide anymore, and I just get to be. And I think that just stuck with me so much that when you strip it all away, all the trans community is asking is to be, to live a life, that we all want to live. And so, that was a huge part of it. I also just was struck with the sheer amount of joy, as I've learned the term trans joy, which I love, which is that sense of when you shed maybe all of the artifice that you've been putting on, the level of freedom and joy that you experience, and the joy, Harper's talked to me at length about so many other people now open up to her since she's opened up and helped others open up, and she's just in the space of joy, and I love that aspect of it, and it's a reminder, I think, for anyone, cis, trans, to sort of do their best to live their true, authentic life, and I think trans people can show us that better than anyone. So,
Were there any points when you were concerned about Harper's safety during filming?
Constantly, I think there's as any trans person will tell you, there's always there's always a threat assessment happening at any time in any public space. But Harper, as you see in the film, she loved to go to these sort of smaller towns and dive bars and places that she wasn't sure if she would be welcome anymore. And so at one point we went into a very small dive bar in the middle of Oklahoma that I remember walking in. She wanted to go in it alone. She wanted to start to do some things without Will, to feel like if she could do that later on, because she's not going to do all her cross-country road trips from here on out with Will Ferrell. And I walked in and I saw, a Confederate flag and some other markings that just gave me a lot of pause. And I came out and talked to her about it, and she said, no, I want to go. I want to go in here. I want to do it. And as you'll see in the film, I don't want to give everything away, but, in a wonderful way, our expectations were not always met, and our prejudices and biases didn't always pan out the way we thought they would. Sometimes for the good and sometimes for the bad.
What was it like making a documentary with a huge star like Will?
It was interesting. I mean, I've known Will for years now, so on one level it was really fun because I think the world will get to see the Will that I know, the guy who, when he's not in character, what he's like. And he's, as you see in the film, he's an incredibly warm, loving man. But it creates challenges. As a documentary filmmaker, I'm always trying to minimize the amount of the amount that the cameras start to have an effect on the story that you're telling. There's always some effect that they have, but certainly having Will out in public spaces could be difficult and challenging at times. And you see in the film, it's sometimes good, as Harper will tell you. Will served as like a human shield, but he also attracts a lot of attention, and that's not always good, as anyone in the trans community will tell you. It's like not all attention is good attention. And so you sort of see that play out in the film, and I wanted to showcase that, in the moments that it happened.
The ending is rather sort of giving space for it's quite open-ended. So do you think there's plans for a sequel?
I mean, we could talk about a sequel. I've got, maybe they could drive across Europe next, or the UK. So we haven't talked about it, but I would be down to jump in a car again and head off somewhere new and see where the next adventure takes them. So yeah, but no, we've not talked about a sequel in earnest.